All right, everyone, let's get down to business. So, to end October, I would like to end on a high note. I did make a video recently about Spiral from the Book of Saw, starring Samuel L. Jackson, a better actor than Chris Rock. Second worst Chris in Hollywood. The first still goes to Chris Pratt. I will not be elaborating. I would like to end on a higher note than just movie that I didn't quite enjoy. If you want to know my opinion about Spiral from the Book of Saw, link is in the description. Link is also in the description to all of my spooky things that I have made, including but not limited to The Craft and her sequel. So if you enjoyed The Craft and you would like to know my opinion about it, it's right there after this video. You can go check it out. Today, we're going to be discussing something that I actually enjoy. There are a few projects that I have in the wings, and I have decided officially that I will be starting my Merlin series breakdown in December. Check in December, and I definitely will get started. Certain videos, just like this one, will be just the first episode of the series that I enjoy. And I will be making a target to hit in likes or views that I will not continue on with the series until I hit that mark. So without further ado, I would like to talk about Grimm. Grimm is a television series that started in 2011. It is considered a mystery and it's got 6 seasons. So if you would like for me to break down each season, because I'm probably not going to do episode by episode with Grimm, but I will definitely do episode by episode with Merlin, which again, I say check in December for that. Sleepy Hollow, I actually might do the first episode of this series Sleepy Hollow in November, even though it's like kind of a Halloween thing. It's not, you'll understand why I'll do it in November when I make the video. However, for October, we're going to start with Grimm. If you really like Grimm and you want to hear my opinion about the rest of the seasons, because I'm not going to do episode by episode with Grimm, I will be doing it season by season. Basically talking about what happened in that season to the very end and how it took a deep poo-poo, trash, garbage, sin dipped in misery when it was first airing. It was great till it wasn't. Just like Grimm, Sleepy Hollow was great until it wasn't. But like I said, Grimm is a mystery series that started in 2011 and ended in 2017. It needed to end because what on earth? There had to be a writer's strike or something that stopped the show from being good, honestly. You can tell when there's a writer's strike, or you can tell when something's not right in the sauce when people go in comas. I'm going to let you know that right now. When people go in comas, that means someone's not getting paid. That means someone is upset at their situation. That means something's going on. That means someone's upset at somebody. Something's going on. But let's not talk about what happened before we get there. Let's talk about how it all began. So in order for me to explain what a Grimm is, I have to just go down the list of what happened in season 1, episode 1. Every episode of Grimm at its basic level surrounds one of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, and this episode surrounds vaguely Little Red Riding Hood. So basically, Grimm, just a little tidbit of Grimm before we get into the season 1, episode 1. Grimm is basically a mystery show in which we follow a cop named Nick Burkhart. the most stereotypical name for like a cop, gumshoe guy that's all for right things and everything that's great. Grimm is also a spoof on the Grimm's fairy tale. So if you were very interested in Once Upon a Time when it was great until it wasn't, like I said, all these shows are great until they're not. And I think it has something to do with people not getting paid what they're, worth when it comes to writing. And as a writer, I completely understand how hard it is to get paid for what you're worth. They have you out here like, oh, you can get a free internship, but my time isn't free. My time isn't free. Oh, well, $100 a freaking 2 months. What? Anyway, so each episode starts with a quote in the beginning. So if I do discuss Grimm further than season 1, episode 1, I will definitely discuss those. Quotes. But for now, we're just going to do season 1, episode 1. So the pilot starts off with this quote. The wolf thought to himself, What a tender young creature. What a nice plump mouthful. The Brothers Grimm, 1812. And that's basically how it goes each episode. It'll have a little excerpt from the Brothers Grimm. If you guys know anything about the Brothers Grimm, it's basically like the fairy tales, except they're really horrible. Like, they're not horrible as in bad, but they're horrible as in scary and macabre. There's a turn on it. It's turning fairy tales with happily ever afters and giving them no happily ever after. That's why I said if you really liked Once Upon a Time, you would be someone who might enjoy Grimm. But without further ado, let's get into season 1, episode 1, pilot. We learn Nick is getting married and about to propose or whatever to his girlfriend. We don't know anything about his girlfriend yet, and I'm going to do my best to not spoil the whole series in this one video about season 1, episode 1. But there are going to be spoilers, and if I slip up, then this is your warning now. I might discuss further things down the line that we are not privy to by the end of this episode, but I'm going to do my best not to. So his girlfriend, Juliet, one of the most, I have to say, one of the most annoying characters to ever be on television. And it's funny how they love to make annoying characters women. She's very indecisive. She's very wishy-washy, and you'll understand that if you're going to watch Grimm. I will also let you know where you can watch Grimm at the end of this video. But Juliet, his girlfriend, his longtime girlfriend, someone that he knows, very interesting. This is so interesting. I can't even do this. I'm not even going to talk about it until it happens. So we learn Hank, his partner, his womanizing partner. He's black, by the way. He's the token black person. This show was made in 2011, and there was still tokenism. There was still the black best friend that we don't know nothing about, or who has very negative attributes compared to his counterpart, and he doesn't balance him. But I digress. Sometimes he wasn't, but Tucker from Danny Phantom, it's literally an archetype that's crazy. It's crazy how it's still going. But anyway, Nick Burkhart has a partner named Hank. He's a womanizer, and they see a woman at a law firm who Nick clocks as some high-class girl for some unknown reason. Literally, this part was just to show them to talk about, oh, you married, you getting married. What you doing looking over there? That's what he's talking about. And he's like, oh, I'm not looking at her. I'm just looking at, can you believe that? Da, 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 da. And I completely understand why he had to see her. I completely understand in hindsight. No, watching every episode of Grimm. I have watched every episode of Grimm. I completely understand, even by the end of this episode, why he had to see this girl. Okay? We don't know her name yet. I'm not going to tell you until we actually get introduced to her, basically, kind of technically. So he sees this blonde girl who is average, but just because she's blonde, she gets literally 30 points. Literally, that's it. But they act like she's so gorgeous, and he's like, oh, yeah, she's got, you see how much money she making or whatever? It make no sense. They could have done this better. It's a little rough. This pilot is a little rough, but the actual show is brilliant as a whole until you get to the latter half of the seasons before it was canceled. So they see this girl who's blonde, and she can't just be blonde and exist. She's not doing nothing. She's not showing all of her business. She's literally just existing. And Hank is already sexualizing her. Doesn't matter what women wear. It doesn't matter what, you could be covered up to the floor and you can still be sexualized. So that's that. Hank sexualizes her, and Nick is like, oh, I see something deeper. Da da da. Look, da da da. It's like, whatever. Like I said, this is a very strange scene. But then again, I understand why he has to see her, because he has to recognize her later. So all of a sudden, Nick Burkhart starts seeing people change into different creatures right before his eyes. And a little later, Nick's aunt brings what will be known as the beacon of the show, her trailer filled with Grimm weapons. When I first saw this show, I didn't look at it like a cop using traditional and barbaric ways to kill human beings with afflictions they have no control over under the guise that he's protecting normal people, when he is in fact abnormal, but not in any physical way, which is commentary on ableism. Literally, since we're this far in the telling of the first episode, I can give you a little hint as to what's going on, basically. So when he starts seeing people turn into creatures, and then his aunt shows up out of nowhere talking about, oh, we got to talk. She's sick. And she feels like she's not getting better. And then she knows that something's happening. She knows, everyone knows, usually in situations like this, if there's a power and it's like depreciating in someone, it's passing on to another person, basically like American Horror Story Coven situation with the Supreme, where if a Supreme is rising, then the other Supreme, their powers get snatched up. But this show basically essentially boils down to a cop being able to kill people based on abnormalities that they were born with, that they can't change. And I'm going to explain why this show is inherently flawed, especially since they do little to nothing to actually humanize these people. It's literally like exceptions to the rule, not a rule, when it comes to Vesson. And I'll explain that word a little later. When I was younger, I saw Nick as a hero, like a superhero, in fact. But this cop literally has generations through his bloodline killing people who are different and putting him in the position to be in the right, because most of these Vesson, these warging people, are criminal killers, rapists, or all around bad guys. But there's good ones we're going to meet real soon that are the exception to the rule, like I said. So Aunt Marie is cutting up tomatoes and meets Nick Burkhart's fiance, Juliet. She warns him not to be with Juliet because it's dangerous. And no sooner did they have this conversation about him seeing things like creatures within a human's face, they're immediately attacked. She holds it down. This woman looks like, they always love to make aunts look like grandmothers. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that. Like, it's been a long time. This new Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, is one of the first times I've ever seen Aunt May not look like a grandma. I don't understand why, if a woman, like, I don't know what it has to do. It probably boils down to misogyny, honestly. Let's just continue. But this woman looks like a grandmother, right? And that could just be because in the show, technically it's like cancer or something or whatever, but it's actually just her Grimm powers being sucked out of her and being put into Nick Burkhart. So she literally is holding it down. She's fighting with all her might, while Nick literally sits in amazement, letting his aunt die. Like, he's sitting there, he's a cop, and he's not helping at all. He's just sitting there staring at her fight, and it's just like, she got it, basically. He literally shoots them like 10 times after that. So here we go with the police brutality, but oh wait, it's fine because it's this guy. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of examples of it's okay to be a person who has police brutality because this person is overpowered, this person is stronger, this person is different, this person is... It's just, Grimm as a basic idea was a great idea. And they could have taken it so much further when it came to understanding that Nick's copness and his Grimm lineage intertwine almost as much as it would make complete sense if he had relatives in a white supremacist group. It would make complete sense. But we're supposed to see Nick as the hero, mind you. He has a partner that's black. I think they did that on purpose. So that it would be easier to see Nick as a hero. And I'm personally not saying or complaining that Hank is black. I'm upset that they did almost nothing with his character the entire time. Like, the white people who come later, who they're humanizing, these Vesson are the people who can change. Warging is what they do to change into whatever happens. We're going to learn that language later, but I have to talk about it in order to talk about what's going on. They could have did so much, even with Hank being black. They could have did so much on commentary, but it is propaganda. You will never see a show go completely out of its way to undo propaganda. And 911 was very close to doing so. 911 was very close to doing so. I watched that show as well. That's probably another show I'll do, this new series thing I'm doing. Like I said, I discussed this earlier, where I do season 1, episode 1, and we hit a mark that's either likes or views, and it will decide on where I go further. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do season 1, episode 2, and then I'll say, okay, this many likes or this many views, and I'll do season 1, episode 3. That's how this is going to go. But 911 is propaganda now. It used to seem like it was going to not be, but it is. Propaganda, like, let's just take a little side note because this has something to do with Grimm. Propaganda is basically showing and humanizing cops while dehumanizing at the exact same time people who commit crimes for whatever reason. They're all scum. There is no leeway for anyone to be unique or in any kind of way nuanced when it comes to the reasons why they commit the crime. While the cops are humanized and there is tons of leeway even when they're in the wrong. For example, in 911, literally, this guy gets drunk and burns his house down and kills his entire family. And he is humanized more so than anybody. In 911, I'm not saying 911 is not about cops. It's just the whole thing around cops. They very much so humanize cops and they're fighting against basically most of the time. I'm not saying all the time. Because propaganda, for it to succeed, they must have, like I said, some exceptions to the rule. Not the rule itself. It can't go both ways. So going back to Grimm, it did not hit the mark when it came to nuance in the end. It didn't get any better than where it was. It never got to the point when it came to the propaganda. It never got better. It only got worse. And the longer it ran, the more it seemed very wrong for Nick to just be killing people. And like I said, in order for Nick to be okay, to be the superhero to kill people, they have to be evil. They have to be a rapist. Like, the reason why I'm talking about this is because this man shot this guy 10 times. And the police get there and they're like, why did you shoot this man 10 times? You need to go to the doctor. Well, first of all, let me just let you know, if you've seen SVU, you know that when people shoot people on the force, people who fire their gun and hit people, I don't know if it's just fire their gun or actually hit people and hurt them or kill them. I have no idea because I'm not a cop. But what I do know is that they must go to therapy after that. They must get seen by somebody and they're like, yeah, you need to go see somebody because you just shot this man 10 times and whatnot. Turns out this guy was like a rapist, pedophile, whatever. He's literally everything horrible under the sun. So it's okay that he got shot 10 times. Honestly, that's literally every time crap like that happens. Like every time something like that happens in this show, it's because this guy is a bad guy or he's horrible. And funny enough, as I started rewatching Grimm with this hindsight, age 25, understanding what I know now, there were some times that they did try to humanize the people who were the ones who were the Vesson. But from my recollection, almost all of them die anyway. And I know that they have to reset everything basically for the next hoorah or the next whatever. But that's funny because Grimm, at least the first season, because I just watched the first season over again, seemed to have connected each show. It's not just, okay, Scooby-Doo, we're back at another place and there's no continuation of the story from the last one. It seems like it holds pretty well together like a quilt first season. Don't remember how well that goes because I just started watching the season and series over again after years and years. I watched this show as it came on live. That's how much of a fan I am of this show. But I'll get more into the whole police thing versus the Grimm thing versus white supremacy thing. That they did this to themselves. The people who ran this show did this to themselves. Nick could have been a very good character had they not done that. I don't know. I feel like they could have it could have made perfect sense. It could have worked out so well, especially when they bring in Trouble. And I'm not even going to talk about Trouble right now. Let me know in the comments if you've seen Grimm and tell me if you like Trouble or not. The people who don't know Grimm, never seen the show, let me know if you want me to continue talking about it. But anyway, let's get back to the show. So, like I said, Aunt Marie fights this dude in the street. Nick sits there like a stupid idiot, mouth agape. He finally gets some gumption, shoots this man 10 times. Aunt Marie tells Nick while she's bleeding out that the fake Harry Potter parents died in a car crash story is fake. In all his life, he's like, oh, my parents died in a car crash. They died from murder. because they were in the lineage line of Grimmetry situation, basically. Basically, technically, they were killed because they are literally people who have been bred and have continued the tradition of killing people who have disabilities that they cannot change. You cannot change whether you're a Vessin or not. Actually, I think there is a way to stop someone from being, but I can't remember when that came into play. As far as we know, there's no way to stop. But there is there is a way, but it's way later. It's way later. They talk about it way later. As of right now, there's no way that anyone can change. And also, why do they need to conform to the world? And it's interesting that someone will say as a rebuttal, well, everyone conforms to the world. Da, 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 da. Like, okay, whatever. I will have this argument, though. I will have this argument against Grimm. Grimm was terrible in the aspect of propaganda and whatnot. And the fact that it upholds white supremacy. But anywho, I still like Grimm. Like, okay, I can critique it all while being like, this is a cool show. But literally, he just learns while she's in the street bleeding that her sister or brother, whoever she's related to, I think she's related to Nick's mom, I think, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. She's just basically saying that they didn't die in a car crash. They were killed. So in the hospital, Marie gives him the key to keep safe as she thinks she's going to die soon. And she was already walking with a cane and bald when she pulled up. Along with the key, he learns that they are the last of the Grimm's bloodline. Killers who kill people who don't fit into society. Like I said, long line. It could make complete sense. And the funniest, hilarious thing about this is I completely understand the reason why. I know for a fact that the people who made Grimm understood the implications of how Grimm would be perceived and the implications of making Nick's partner black. The implications of this Grimm, this person who was bred and came from a bloodline of killers who killed people who did not fit into society, being a cop. It's not a theory. It's not a theory. This all makes sense. The reason why I say this is because I 1,000,000,000% remember them rolling clips of people from history. And one of them was Adolf Hitler turning into a Vessin. They understood the implications. That's why, like I said, they had to make every single one of them evil. They had to make them evil. They made Adolf Hitler. Why wouldn't you think it would make more sense if he was a Grimm? Of course, you can't say that. And of course, like I said, you didn't even have to put Adolf Hitler in this. You didn't have to. But they did that on purpose. But since you did, here we go. You know what I mean? Here we go. You open that can of worms. You didn't have to put Adolf Hitler in there at all. But if he is going to be in there, he should have been a Grimm. And you can't show that he's a Grimm just by looking at him because Grimms look normal. The only way you can tell a Grimm is if a Vessin looks into the eyes of a Grimm when they warg. That's why when he sees people switch and they look at him, they switch back immediately because they see that he's a Grimm. They see it in the eyes. But we get into more of that later. Okay? So, Nick and Hank's captain is literally a warg. This guy, his name's Sasha. He's such a great actor. I don't know why we don't see him in a lot more things. Like, I don't know. Don't quote me on this, but I think he might have been in Charmed before. Don't remember. But he was in something that was really well. I'm like, oh my gosh, keep going, dude. I never see him in anything. He should have got more gigs from Grimm. He is so good. He's one of the best actors I've ever. He's up there with Tony Shalhoub. I love him like Tony Shalhoub. But his captain, Nick and Hank's captain, is literally a warg, but we don't know that yet, okay? I didn't realize how many of these characters last beyond the season, literally, because there's a lot of characters that are literally introduced first episode, and we see them for many, many seasons, okay? It's really interesting how they keep all these characters. However, Nick goes into the trailer after a nightmare where Juliet, one of the most insufferably created women characters in history, is attacked by a snake person because he was attacked by a snake person outside when Aunt Marie was fighting, and he was just sitting there, mouth agape, not doing nothing until he shot him 10 times. But while he's in the trailer, he just sees a bunch of stuff from his It's just very interesting. Portland, especially considering whose base is in Portland. I'm not going to say who it is in this video, but you can look it up if you want to, whose base is in Portland. And then Nick just so happens to have a family who hunts down people for sport because they're different from everyone else. A bunch of memorabilia and weapons and pictures, identifiers, basically dividing these people into like creature type categories. Very interesting. Very interesting. Nick is getting more Grimm powers as his aunt is dying in the hospital. Juliet gets nosy and starts asking questions about the mysterious trailer in her yard. I say nosy because it's literally her yard. Like, she's not getting nosy, but he's acting like she's getting nosy when literally Aunt Marie pulled up with this trailer, said nothing to Juliet about what it was, and then expects Nick to not tell her anything about what happened with this trailer. This is in my backyard. Why is it here? Bro. So from the time Nick was 12, he's been raised by his aunt. So in the next scene, there is a mailman who is, for some reason, attracted to women and girls in red hoods. Aunt Marie has knife marks all over her body when Nick goes back to the doctor's to check up on her and all that. The doctor asks, what does this girl do? And he's like, oh, she does this and that. I don't remember what he said, but like, she was like, well, literally, she's got cuts all over her body. So whatever she did in her life, it was crazy. She's literally a warrior. For the most part, they villainize all of the Vessin on the show except like literally 2 people. 1, 2. I can think of them and I remember their names. They're used as the token Vessin who don't do nothing wrong, who used to be bad but are good now, and they repent by helping Nick kill their kind. The work of art can't just say, this here is racism or this here is a problem in society. You can't just say it and then that's it. We already know these things exist. If you have nothing further to add or any nuance to add to these characters or actually a foot to stand on, don't make media out of problems in society. Like I said, Grimm, it's a representation of discrimination and a form of ableism. I really do believe that. And it's just like what people are discussing on Twitter when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender. The TV show is a kid's show, and people love to talk about that when they discuss why Aang didn't kill someone who was a genocidal maniac who committed genocide, killed every single one of the airbenders who he knew, the generations that never got to be known, and sent out soldiers who could have possibly raped people of the water tribes. And within the characters who are the main characters, they push to turn the other cheek while showing the people who they desperately want to villainize. Hama, who was taken from her place, also could have been raped, kept in a cage, barely fed the entire time. And she was doing bloodbending against the colonizers who came in, the people who misplaced her. But she gets to be imprisoned. There is no good light for her. But Zuko, who forgives the father who maimed him and sent his mother away, he turns the other cheek and he's a good guy now. While Jet, who is trying to get revenge on more colonizers, the show decides that Jet needs to die. But Katara, who finally finds the person who could have possibly raped her mother and killed her, we know for certain he did. She's like, oh, I'll never forgive, or I won't forget, but I'll let you live. Like, there is never a time where we teach that revenge is okay, especially specifically, if not just limited to, when we're talking about colonization. And this reasoning and the way that Grimm is set up to villainize those who are discriminated against, that's exactly why people feel the way they do about Israel and Palestine. Free Palestine and free the Congo. People can come in and quote unquote settle. People can come in and quote unquote protect the world, as these Grimms are supposed to be doing by killing these people. But the people who are being killed, the Vessin, don't seem to ever be in the right when it comes to seeking revenge. even if it's specifically to the people. It's one thing if you want to make some flimsy argument that, oh, these people have nothing to do with that. I can't believe you would say anything like that. Literally, specifically, Monroe talks about how his family and the people he knew had horror stories about Nick's family. Nick's family kill people. They do it. So that's why I'm just kind of sitting here like, you can't just make Grimm and then have this guy be a cop, have it in Portland, and then everything else. That's the biggest issues about this, like, honestly. Well, we'll keep talking about it. You can't have Monroe drop every other episode. Hey, that seems like that's wrong. I can't believe you're treating people this way. And he continues to give him help in order to kill people. Okay, dude, okay. Like I said, you can't just say this is a problem and then make everything that and then sit there with it and not have any commentary that's useful. Monroe saying every other episode that what Nick is doing is discrimination and his family's terrible, while also still helping him every other day. Sometimes he'll say no, maybe, and then he'll help in the end anyway. It's a mute situation. I feel nothing for that. There's no weight behind that. But anyway, so everyone is rounded up in the precinct to discuss the girl who's missing, because the person who's killing people, like in the beginning, I didn't talk about this because it's kind of like it's like something that happens in the beginning. There's this woman who is jogging in the woods and is killed, and she's got a red hood, and they find her Walkman, and they're like, oh my goodness, we hear this song. And that's how they find the killer, because the guy who was the killer was singing the song, which is funny because, like, you could listen, literally, like, imagine someone thinking you're the killer because you like rapping Megan Thee Stallion, and Megan Thee Stallion was like the last thing that was on somebody's Walkman because they died. Like, that'd be crazy. But they're correct when that happens. They're correct. But everybody's rounded up in the precinct. Nick and Hank and the captain discuss what's going on while the token Asian man says his one-liner for the episode or scene. Like, he's there, so he'll just walk up into a scene and he'll say some like one-liner or something like Leon S. Kennedy and then walk out. Like, that's literally his job for the majority of Grimm. But Nick figures out that the killer attacks the red-hooded people because the girl who went missing has a red hood. And it's like, okay, there's two people, but okay, I guess whatever. Okay, you know what? I'm not a cop. I'm not a private investigator. I'm just a person. So Nick and Hank go back to the forest where we meet Monroe. You know what's crazy about this thing? They think that he's the killer because I think Nick sees him warg, so he chases him. And the cops literally do police brutality on this man because of how he looks. Quote unquote, he fits the description. But the craziest thing about this whole situation is most of the Vesson are white. So what is this show even trying to say? And there would still be different implications if all the Vesson were ethnic. However, I don't like when they reverse switch the situations where they will talk about discrimination, they will talk about racism, they'll talk about everything, but then have it relate back to white people being discriminated against. And this whole Grimm situation where he's a cop and he's got a long lineage of people who kill other people for looking different. And then we've got Adolf warging out because he's a Vesson. It just don't make no sense. This stuff don't make no sense. You can't say everything and nothing all at once. It's either got to be one or the other, and we're still going to talk about it. You're like, oh, you're never going to be happy. If they were all black or if they were all ethnic, then you'd be like, oh, I can't believe you made all these ethnic people animals. Yes, correct. That's why you have a mix. You have some black, some white, some Asian, some Hispanic, some of everyone, but most of them are white. And then this whole white supremacist situation, when it comes to, it's very easy to make Grimms seem like they are white supremacists. It just all fits together. But like I said, what are they trying to say when all of the people who are warging are mostly white? What is this show trying to say? It don't make no sense. Anyway, like I said, Monroe is literally racially profiled. You fit the profile. Literally comes flying out of his mouth. What? It comes out of Nick's mouth. Monroe is, however, one of the good ones, along with his later wife-to-be. But I'm not going to talk about her, okay? You'll know her when you see her, because she will be the second person they use as the tokenized Vesson, who aren't bad, just misunderstood. And also, Monroe says that he used to be a killer, but not anymore. And that's crazy because it's just everything makes sense to what this, it's like, wow. So what you're telling me is you're willing to use people who are criminals and help them? Not at all. Mind you, this man never gets paid. He's never on the payroll. At least when Monk goes out and does stuff and he's not working directly with the cops precinct style. He's private investigator. He at least gets paid for his jobs. That's another show I'll do. I'll do Monk as well, but that'll be for a later time. Each one of these shows is going to have a month that I'm going to do the first episode so that I can just give you a little taste, and then we'll do the whole rest of the season. Some of them we will be doing by episode. Some of them we'll be doing by season. This show I am definitely going to do by season, because what the heck, so much happens. I don't even know if I'll have time for that. But maybe I'll do a poll and see what you guys want from me. Like, if you want me to do just this season in general, or if you want me to do each episode, because, that would be a long time of editing. I'm already going to have to edit this video. But anyway, like I said, Monroe doesn't get paid, but he helps them through almost everything they do. And they started out because he was racially profiled. Don't make no sense. This white man was racially profiled. I was like, okay, whatever. Okay, let's just continue. So Juliet is at home being jealous of the trailer. Literally, she's sitting out there looking like she's the Grinch hating on the Who's. It's crazy. And her fiance will not talk about it or bring her into the situation at all, thanks to Aunt Marie talking about, never tell her. And this is the one thing that's so annoying, because this episode starts off terribly, because in hindsight, this doesn't seem that bad. But not telling Juliet from the first episode, you know this girl, you've known her for a long time, really messes up their whole dynamic. It really does. It tears them apart and ruins the show. It ruins the show. I'm telling you, it ruins it. But until then, it's pretty good. So, Monroe is very nice to Nick, who has tried to assault him twice now. Tells him of how they see Grimms. Monroe calls himself a Blutbot. There are so many German names or whatever that describe each character or whatever. If I have to do the by each episode for Grimm, if that's what y'all want, I will. And I'll do my best to remember all the names. But I remember Blutbot as much as I remember the rest of them. So he calls himself a reformed Blutbot because supposedly Blutbots are like crazed creatures that can't control themselves, and they've got to go on hunts and stuff. They're basically like wolves. Each one is basically like an animal. So I understand why people wouldn't want to make them all ethnic. But like I said, you can have some of them to be ethnic. You can have some of them, and it's not some at this point. It's the majority of them are white. And if you're going to make this whole we're oppressed thing, that don't make no sense. But anywho, I just can't. I don't know. Watching shows I used to enjoy, and seeing these things, like, it's sad. But I'd rather be one who understands than one who's ignorant. Because, like, this whole thing with Monroe and how he just gets beat up on by the cops and then is literally written to turn the other cheek countless times makes no sense. But Monroe is a clockmaker who was scent marking around the outside of his house. And that's why, that's what it was. Monroe was urinating outside, and like Nick was like, ugh. So we see in a separate scene the man who played Monk's arch enemy on Monk. If you want me to do Monk, let me know. I might do Monk later next year. But I've already done a video on the movie announcement because I love Monk. It's one of the another shows that was really great, and I think it ended pretty great too. It's one of the shows that was very consistent, but it had a lot of problems that I can't wait to talk about. But he literally plays the killer of this show. He takes the little girl that went missing and locks her in the basement to give us hope Nick and Hank will find her before she dies. Along with Monroe, Nick goes to search for the blue bot who fed and should be good for 10 days, fattening up the next victim. That's basically what Monroe tells Nick what blue bots do. Monroe rubs Wolfsbane on his body to stop the dude from smelling him, because with each Vesson, they all have a certain thing they do or certain thing that they can achieve or something like strength and whatnot. That's why that man had to get shot. He didn't have to get shot 10 times. I'm going to let you know that right now. No one has to get shot 10 times to be put down. However, that's the excuse they use basically for the reason why he had to kill that man like that. But like I said, he was also a rapist and all that. Like they literally make these people into the worst human beings imaginable when that's not the only people that the police kill. But sometimes they let them go to Burger King. Sometimes they let killers go to Burger King. It just depends on what they look like. And that goes into the fact that they are literally discriminating against people who cannot control what they look like or how they present in life. And there is a sense where you cannot warg. There's an option to not warg. But this is who you are. You are that person. You are that creature. So I don't know. Let's just continue. So Monroe acts like he wavers in his control over his blue bot stuff and skedaddles. He's like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. So this is like one of the only times I can recall him not being able to go past a certain point because the quest doesn't allow him to. I don't recall him ever having to do this again. But who knows? I'm going to continue watching the show. So Nicholas calls Hank to the woods. They both go inside the cabin and they go in there and be like, oh, everything's fine. We're just looking for a killer, whatever. He's like, oh. He's acting like he's normal and everything's fine. He's like, oh, I'm just baking pie. Everything's fine. Would you like some pie, gentlemen? And it's just like, He hums the same song the first girl was listening to when she died. And Hank notices. Hank also kills the dude dead. Kills him dead. He doesn't see him as the creature. He just sees him as very strong. They literally are like, where's this girl? And he dies. He's like, oh, you're Grimm. He dies. His last words are like, you're Grimm or whatever. He's scared because this man, and yes, like I said, they wrote these people like this. They did not have to write every single Vesson as a rapist, murderer, pedophile, killer. Okay? They didn't have to do those things. But alas, they do. They make almost every single Vesson into someone that you would be fine with seeing die, rather than giving them like enough to be like, okay, this person doesn't deserve to die. Most of them all do. It's crazy. Like, how do they deserve to die just because they present into the world a different way than everybody else? It just is commentary on the world. Like Grimm's, there's nothing special about Grimm's. It would be very interesting to see if a Grimm had something different that they could see other than the fact that their eyes glow a certain way or whatever, like they see it in their eyes or whatever. But no, they are the normal ones that can see people who are abnormal. And it's just very interesting. It would be a great study. It would be a great study, but they don't find the girl right away. They're searching for her. They literally kill this guy before they know where she is. She could be somewhere where they would never find her. Like, she didn't even have to be in the house, but guess he took the blue bot's word for it, and he was like, yeah, she's gonna be there. So after all that, Nick finds out that his aunt is in a coma, and he goes to see her. And then the girl that he sees in the beginning, literally the whole scene that is very strange and makes no sense and is very awkward in the beginning, was all to set up for her coming back into the room. And Nick sees that this girl's trying to kill his aunt with a syringe. He fights back, and he gets the syringe instead. She runs out. Then we learn that this girl, Adelaide, knows the captain very well, and they're working together against the Grimm. And that is the end of season 1, episode 1, the pilot. There are 6 seasons, 22 episodes each, except for the last season. The 6th season only has 13, and that just tells me that the writing room was... If I talk about Grimm ever again, I will be doing it in increments of seasons, not episodes. That's just too much. So, basically, each episode of Grimm is based on like Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood, stuff like that. Princess and the Pea. And it's really cool. It's really cool to see how it will translate into a modern era. That's why I said if you really like Once Upon a Time, you would probably get into Grimm as well. I don't know if they were running at the same time because I didn't watch Once Upon a Time when it was live. I literally watched it years later when everybody was already over it. I found inspiration to make this video before working on any of the other videos that I already had planned to make for this channel, because I noticed on Twitter that the page, legitimate yellow checkmark Grimm page, has been posting a lot lately. And I posted under there, oh, y'all should reboot the series before Juliet went into her quote-unquote coma, because that's basically when the show turned terrible. And it just got worse from there. I'm letting you know right now, if we discuss it, I will let you know when it got bad and why. But that's one of the many reasons why I was like, I can't watch this no more. It's too much. And somebody underneath was like, oh, no, don't reboot. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not rebooting the whole thing where it's going to be like different people. It's the same people, just what they did with the Connors versus Roseanne. In Roseanne, it kept going until craziness happened. She had another child, but in the rebooted version of the continuation, Roseanne didn't have that child. They didn't win the lottery. A lot of things were retconned. And I really do think that Grimm would succeed if the things that I discussed were changed with the propaganda, which I don't ever see happening, and the fact that a lot of the problems stem from Nick just not telling Juliet what's happening. You think that it's safer for her to not know what's going on? You really think that that's smart? And I'm not going to blame Aunt May or Aunt Marie, because what? He's a grown man. He could have just said okay and then did it anyway. That's basically it. I have a lot of things to say about Grimm. I really hope to do the whole season, like season 1, season 2, season 3, all the way to season 6, to explain the rise and fall of Grimm. I will be dividing that into each season. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Happy Halloween. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. Check your candy. Make sure you are in a place with people who know you. Make sure your family knows where you're going if you're going anywhere this Halloween. COVID is still out there. Don't eat after people. Wash your hands after you use the restroom. I don't care if you're a guy and you just swing it around and you run out of there. You got to wash your hands. I don't know what's wrong with you. But yeah, that's it basically. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have you ever watched Grimm? If you haven't watched Grimm, it is located on Freevee. I don't know what the heck that is. It's free on CW if you have cable. Peacock with subscription. Amazon Prime with subscription. YouTube from $1. But I am buying up YouTube. But it's on Vudu. It's on Apple TV. It is in a lot of places and a few places that are free. So please go watch it if you enjoyed this episode's breakdown. But we're going to drop off Grimm for a while because I have to get started on the Merlin video that will be premiering in December. I will also be doing Sleepy Hollow in November, and I will try to find a way to put Monk in there maybe next year. Who knows? But if you guys enjoyed, I'm done.